Oh, yes.
Welcome back, everyone. Today we're going to be taking a look at the BotCon 2016 box set, the Combiner Predacus. Now, some of you may be thinking, well, this is kind of out of the blue and out there, and there is a method for my madness. This review is coming as part of a series of reviews I wanted to do to commemorate the 25th anniversary of the Beast Wars line, which, as many of you know, I hold rather near and dear to my heart. It's also simultaneously being done as part of the Tformers.com Beast Wars 25th Anniversary Celebration Month, where they're going to be doing some really cool giveaways, as well as featuring photos and video reviews of Beast-era characters. And I signed on to do 3 reviews for that, and I decided to kind of go out of the box a little bit, and rather than just review, standard Beast Wars toys, which have been done, I imagine, quite a bit, I wanted to take a look at a different side of the Beast era, and that's the pre-conflict on Earth side of it, right? Basically vehicle mode Beast Wars characters. And BotCon is a really great place to start because that's the whole theme of that, right? It was Golden Era Seibertron. So make sure to go to tformers.com and check out everything going on there. Lots of really cool stuff. And I hope that you'll join myself as well as other YouTube reviewers in celebrating the 25th anniversary of what I consider one of the best installments in the Transformers brand in its entire history. With all that said, if you've seen my reviews before, you know this goes. We're going to take a look at Predacus's packaging, then we're going to open up the box, we're going to get a good look at everything that comes inside, and then we're going to review the 5 figures themselves in both vehicle and robot modes. Then we'll culminate with the actual combined mode of Predacus. Naturally, I'll be doing some group shots and comparisons today, and then at the end of the video, I'll give my final thoughts. So Predacus, being a BotCon box set, comes in this really, really nice bit of packaging. And you can see it's full artwork here of the Combiner, which is, as many of you probably already know, based on the Beast Wars character Tripredacus. And they dropped the tri prefix from the name because this Combiner is made of 5 members as opposed to the usual 3. So in addition to your 3 generals that would compose Tripredacus, we also have Tarantulas and Ravage adding to the mix. Because this is a Combiner War style Combiner, it naturally needs to have, the 5 members. So it's a very cool concept. You get the Tripredacus Council as well as 2 of their most notorious agents combining with them to form what is likely a more powerful Combiner than the standard Tripredacus configuration during Beast Wars. So overall, it's a really neat little concept. Now, you can see there's all sorts of destruction going on in the background, which I'm guessing is on Seibertron, though. I mean, they got English lettering here. Kind of weird. It looks more like an Earth-based scene, but who knows. Some overturned car. And then, interestingly, you have Pterosaur flying in. And Pterosaur was one of the other figures released during BotCon 2016, though he wasn't released with a Combiner piece that forms either a hand or a foot, so he's kind of the odd man out. I think the intention was to make him like a swappable member or something, but for whatever reason that piece wasn't included. I don't know, it was factory error or what have you, but when they recolored him to Fractal, they included the piece, so go figure. Alright, so the artwork's very, very nice. Turn it to the side. You get the character side profile like you would on, your standard Combiner Wars releases. I love Combiners, in case you don't know. All right, here we get the BotCon 2016 logo, and then our 5 characters. So you get C-Clamp, Ramhorn, and Cicadacon, who make up the Tripredacus Council. And then you get Predacon Tarantulas. I guess they needed a... I guess it does make sense to have to put Predacon there because his name really just is Tarantulas. So, and then Ravage. So very, very cool. Which, by the way, we're getting a new Ravage coming up, which I'm really excited for, new Beast Wars Ravage. So we'll pop this lid open. Then we look in here and we get our nice little foam insert. I don't normally keep boxes, but I keep the BotCon ones because they're so nice and pretty. So you can see you got C-Clamp, Ramhorn, Ravage, Tarantulas, and Cicadacon, all just stashed in there, as well as a neat little pin for BotCon 2016. This was held in Louisville, Kentucky. This is also, by the way, in case you don't know, the only BotCon I ever actually attended. Which makes me very sad because it was also the last BotCon that they ever did, so better late than never, I guess. So we move the styrofoam out of the way. Inside, we have all of the spare accessories that are just kind of tossed in there. mostly the hands and feet, some small weapons. They just didn't make room for them in the insert, so they just stash them in the bottom. And we get a folder. This folder has a little certificate in it of authenticity for the toy. It says, this certifies that the holder has participated in the 2016 Hasbro BotCon Transformers Collectors Convention held at the Galt House Hotel in Louisville, Kentucky. Then you got the name of the toy. Further certifies that the Predacus set is authentic, received at the convention. Now it's interesting because I actually went to this one, but even if you just ordered these online, didn't go, you still got the same certificate, so go figure. But it's still really cool to have. It makes this a really, really nice little piece of Transformers history. All right, so we've seen the box and everything. Let's break out the figures. Okay, here's a look at all of our individual bots in their vehicle modes. From left to right, you have Ravage, Ramhorn, C-Clamp, Cicadacon, and Tarantulas. So starting with Ravage, he is a new head retool of the Combiner Wars Breakdown toy. And he's done up in his colors that are, based on his Beast Wars appearance, which of course is based on his G1 appearance. So he's got a lot of black and red, and then he's got a little bit of like a light teal color going on. You see that color extends to his sword blade. Pull that away for a sec, so I can show you that he has, like the old Beast Wars toy that was exclusive to Japan, both a red Predacon symbol and a purple Decepticon symbol there, showing his dual allegiances, which is neat. And then he can, wield his combiner hand like a supercharger type thing, which you can pull away to reveal some more nice blue paint along the grills here. It's very, very nice. He's very sleek looking in this mode, and only this mode. We'll get to that. Next we get Ramhorn, who is a retool of the Combiner Wars Brawl toy. And interestingly, he includes this drill, which, I guess goes with the name Ramhorn, right? Because he can ram the drill into things. The drill is actually a piece meant for the Combiner Wars Nose Cone toy, but at the time this guy was released, Nose Cone, he hadn't even been released yet. So he's actually the first one to use it, even though it's clearly made for that character. But it worked, and obviously they had the tooling already available, because Combiner Wars was really heavy on the pre-tooled stuff. A lot of that stuff never even saw the light of day, like a Combiner Wars Demolisher. But overall, he's pretty cool looking, and the default way of having him do this is basically reversing the tank, having this be the front, so the drill comes out that way. But you can always just attach it right here like you can the standard tank cannon for the Brawl mold. We take that. We get our C-Clamp, who is a new head retool of Combiner Wars Scattershot. Now, Scattershot's mold had already been released at this point because he was a standalone release, but, of course, then they recolor him, include him in Computron too. So as such, he's just this very kind of futuristic looking aircraft type thing. Got the big cannon nose cone, but he also has the cannon from his robot and combiner modes down here. And overall, pretty cool looking. It's got some nice striping here on the sides that becomes 4 arms, and some very colorful additions to what becomes the chest plate area for the combiner. Next we get Cicadacon. And Cicadacon is the only one of these guys that actually has any sort of animal motif going on in the vehicle mode. You can see he's got the insectoid wing paint job going on in his wings there. So that's really neat. He's also got painted on black and red Predacon symbols, so I dig that. And he's got a little bit of yellow here, which looks really nice. Dark gray nose cone. And Cicadacon is actually just a direct redeco of the Combiner Wars Skydive toy. So, just an aerial bot recolor. But overall, he's still pretty cool, and the Skydive head looks similar enough to Cicadacon's CGI model head, which, in case you haven't already figured out, these guys are based much more heavily on their Beast Wars screen representations than they are the actual Beast Wars toys. In the cartoon, the characters looked very, very different from how they did in toy form, because, they didn't have beast modes yet or anything. And the red coloration, let's talk about that too. So the characters were always shown drenched in what appeared to be a red light, and it always left it kind of a mystery of are they actually red, or is that just the lighting? Now this set right here took the approach of, no, they're actually red in their pre-beast forms. The new Beast Wars comics, however, actually went with the other approach, where they showed them in their TV show forms, but outside the red light, they're actually shown to have their toy colors, which personally I would have really preferred here. I think this combiner would be way cooler if they actually used the original Tripredacus colors for these guys, but oh well, decisions were made. And then lastly, we get Tarantulas, who is a new head retool of Combiner Wars Rook, done up in, obviously, Tarantulas' very distinct coloration with the dark blue and purple, mixed with some lime green and some bright orange. Very sinister looking. I dig it. Now, honestly, I think Rook is an odd choice for Tarantulas, right? Because Rook is a big, brawny, heavily armored character. And Tarantulas, he was never a bruiser. He was just kind of a scheming scientist type. So I don't know why that specific mold was chosen. I really don't. And this actually isn't the first pre-beast form Tarantulas that Fun Publications released. They had a motorcycle one that was from a Junkion mold that they released as part of their Wings universe. So this isn't technically the same character, right? Wings universe was its own continuity, so there is at least an out for him to have two very different looks pre-Beast Wars. This is just the one they went with for, whatever reason they decided. All right, now we get our bots in their robot modes. And again, from left to right, you get Ravage with his laughably small head, Ramhorn, C-Clamp, Cicadacon, and Tarantulas. Now, I talked about the color choice for our three generals here, and I still stand by what I said, that I think they really should have been colored in their standard beast colors, because there's a bit of a thematic breakup. Like, these 3-0 color matching makes Predacus look really good from, like, the knees up, right? He's very coherent, but then he gets, two oddly differently colored feet. And with combiners, typically the way you want to go, you either want to have pretty much full color coordination, like, say, Victorion, though her specific choice of colors may not be everyone's favorite, or make it very mix and match looking. It looks off when most of the combiner color matches and then some parts don't. Of course, that is just my opinion, right? I'm not an expert on color matching, but, So yeah, I do really, really wish they would have released them in more standard colors, but well, those guys holding his little thumb up. So yeah, let's get a look at Ravage. Like I said, he's got this really, really tiny head, and what makes it even worse is not only is it very small and very high off the ball joint, the back of it is completely flat. Like, this right here is probably the low point of the entire set, just the terrible Ravage head. Ravage is such a very cool character. I don't know why they had to do him like that. Now, the Fun Pub guys actually did address this at the convention. They were asked about it. And according to them, they said the original head was actually supposed to look a lot better, but the factory somehow misinterpreted the renders they sent or something. Now, you can choose to believe them or not, I don't know. This was their final convention before they lost the license, and things did seem a little sloppier than they normally do, so I can't say for sure. And there were some QC issues thrown about, both in this set and with other things. Like I mentioned, Pterosaur not coming with his combiner weapon, which there's just no reason for that other than a mistake or really stupid cost cutting. Because, like, what good is a combiner limb without the hand or foot to connect to it? Then it's just a stump, All right, now Ramhorn. Like I said, he has a new head, which is really cool. Looks like his on-screen appearance, more or less. A little squished because it's got to fit inside of things. And this head, because of the big old wings on it and stuff, you sometimes have to turn it either forward or backward, depending on what mode you put him in, whether it's a limb mode or vehicle mode, because it does create some clearance issues. So it's something to keep in mind. C-Clamp over here actually has a similar problem. His head, because the crest on it is so tall that really the only way to get it to fit inside when you fold his chest down and tuck it away, you actually have to turn his head sideways as it goes in. Otherwise, it's not going to fit right. So you got to do it like that. So just something to keep in mind, because the entire head piece is painted, and if you're just trying to force it in there, you're probably going to scratch a whole bunch of his paint off. And so far, I've been lucky enough. I think I haven't scratched any off of him. So he's pretty cool. Naturally, being the torso bot and the Voyager in the group, he's a lot bigger than his compatriots, when normally he's really close to the same height. But again, they got to make it work within the Combiner Wars aesthetic because that's kind of their licensing thing with Hasbro's. They tend to use whatever toys are current at the time, and Hasbro wanted to be a Combiner Wars based thing, so they went with that. Which again, in my book, the more combiners, the better. I love combiners. All right, then we get to Cicadacon, and like I said, he is just a straight redeco of Skydive here. Same head and everything. So he's, probably the lowest effort of the group. They didn't do any retooling on this guy. It's like, come on, you guys charge us like $400 for this. You can choose to leave his cicada wings out, I guess, if you want to make it look more like the original toy. It's up to you. He does have some nice silver paint on the hands, which is neat, pretty neat. Painted like shins, black kneecaps, painted feet. So, they might have skimped on the head budget, but at least the paint budget's there. And then Tarantulas. He probably has the most paint on him out of all of them. And like I said, he's done it very much in his show-based colors. So there are a lot more, there's a lot more contrast to him than like the original toy. You can see, the one thing I never liked about Rook is they made the weird decision to not give him like holes in his fists to hold things. They put him on like his knuckles. And, it's got some fun gimmick stuff because you can make him actually have a combiner hand, but it doesn't really work for Tarantulas. Just like the whole being a giant bruiser thing doesn't anyway. So, again, wouldn't have been my choice of mold for Tarantulas. Not sure which one I would have picked. Probably one of the sports car molds. Maybe the dead end mold for him. Like, I know it's been used to death, and the Rook mold hasn't seen as much use, but still. They also could have done the Groove one to make him more in line with the previous Fun Pub Tarantulas. Or maybe just at least do the Swindle version of the Rook mold. Make him a little less heavily armored. But, oh well, it is what it is. Okay, now I want to do a series of comparisons with some of these characters' Beast Wars toys. So we'll start off here with Ramhorn. And the Beast Wars Ramhorn turns into a stag beetle or rhinoceros beetle. And, these beetles are notorious for being very tank-like. They have incredibly hard shells. They're very, very tough. So this tank-like alt mode actually works very well for Ramhorn. Now, out of the three generals, his show-based head probably bears the least resemblance to his Beast Wars form, right? He has like weird little bat wings on his head, whereas the Beast Wars toy has like the big rhinoceros crest thing going on there. But aside from that, I think they actually do line up very well together. They're, the shorter but stockier characters in the group, so I think it's a pretty good choice. You could also, if you want to, take his little drill attachment thing, plug it onto his back, have it stick up a bit, and kind of sort of give the illusion that he does have the same head shape, right? Now he's got like the long bit coming on the top, and he's got the two bits coming out the side, which, make up the antennas over here. It's just something you can do if you want him to look a little bit closer to his classic self. Okay, next we have C-Clamp and his Beast Wars counterpart. And his head is a bit more like his Beast Wars counterpart. The Beast Wars toy has some sort of a central crest coming up in the middle, so does he. Again, it's a pretty loose interpretation if they were even trying to mimic that design. Because insectoid Predacons were known for being rather monstrous in appearance and not very humanoid looking. But I will say, kind of like Ramhorn, he really has the best body type for trying to match the classic design. Right, regular C-Clamp, he's very lanky looking, really skinny, and this guy matches that. I do still really wish they would have given him a bit more of a lobster-like motif. Even if they weren't going to do the colors, maybe put, I don't know, like lobster leg-like paint marks somewhere. I mean, you have these stripes, but that's more so for the combiner mode. They didn't try really hard to emulate anything in the OG design. Here we have the Cicadacons. And the overall head shape probably matches on these guys the best. They both have just kind of a squat bucket-like helmet thing going on. And like I already mentioned with this guy, he at least gets some sort of animal motif with his wings. See that right there? Because the original Cicadacon has very prominent wings on display. Now, it is a shame, because one thing that makes this guy cool is that he dual wields swords, and they didn't give this guy any kind of swords to play with. It would have been a nice touch if instead of giving him the usual blaster, they included some swords, or gave us both. You know, options are always better. So yeah, again, they're a pretty good thematic match for each other. I really would have loved to see this guy, and this guy is like green and purple and white. He would have looked very, very cool with it. Okay, then our last individual comparison is going to be Tarantulas with his classic Beast Wars toy, more specifically the 10th anniversary version, which gave him much more show-accurate colors. And one big thing you'll notice is that the color schemes don't match at all. That's because our Combiner Wars figure, his colors are actually based off of Tarantulas' Transmetal form, which sadly I don't have that toy, and it's very expensive on the secondary market, so I'm just without for now. But you can still use this to get a good idea of the general motifs going on. Right, he's still got the creepy spider-like mouth and all that. He has more of a kind of just metallic head crest thing going on than actual like spider eyes, but you know, again, he's not actually a spider yet, so they wanted to blend the familiar with the mechanical, so I think it worked out pretty well. And unlike the other three guys we just compared, these two are much more obviously the same character. Like, you can look at them and be like, oh yeah, that looks like the same guy. And on a side note, I really love the Beast Wars Tarantulas toy because it's one of the few Beast Wars toys that really stand the test of time when it comes to actually just like being a good posable action figure and looking like the character that was in the show. Like, honestly, he's probably one of the least in need of an actual update, because the regular toy is just really good looking as it is. Maybe not the beast mode so much, but the robot mode is like spot on. Though we are apparently getting a new Tarantulas in the next year's toy line, which of course I'll get, and I'm looking forward to comparing it to this one just to see how much better they did with it, or maybe didn't, who knows. Alright, so I mentioned this is the last individual comparison. Unfortunately, I won't be doing a Ravage one because I just don't own any version of Beast Wars Ravage. At least not yet, because I 1000% plan on picking up that War for Seibertron one when it comes out. And now, at last, we come to the main event, the Combiner Predacus. So you can see he's made out of our three generals here on the top, and then you get Tarantulas and Ravage lending support as the legs. Now, there are a few things with this combination that are a bit inconsistent. For one, the artwork of the toy and pretty much all photos and renders of it have the Ramhorn arm mode mistransformed. They have it to where like the turret part of the tank is like rotated on top and all that. The problem is when you do that, you get no outward motion of the arm. So it might look pretty good, but unfortunately it's not very stable. So I've gone ahead and transformed it the way the mold's supposed to be transformed. There's also the question of what hands and feet go where. Now, if you look at the box art, the character has black feet and red hands. However, it's very confusing because all those hands and feet are just copies of Tarantulas and Ravage's pieces, just done up in both red and black. So that's very confusing. And then when you look at the character's fictional appearance in the comic, they're actually done up this way with black hands and red feet. Now, personally, I prefer the fictional look. Helps break up the colors a little bit more. But there's also a practical reason for it, and this is one of the big QC issues I talked about. So this, which is Tarantulas' hand-foot gun thing, is very, very loose. You can see how easily it's just kind of wobbling out of there. And this was an issue with most, if not all, copies of this box set, that the post here, for some reason, was molded just a bit too small. It came out smaller than it was supposed to. And because of that, it sits very loosely in any 5mm port. Now, because of that, I've elected to go for the red feet and black hands thing so that Tarantulas doesn't always have his foot just kind of falling off. But then you also got to make sure not to use this hand as the load-bearing hand that holds the weapon, because the added weight from the cannon will cause us just to slide out of the wrist socket. So I would just use it as his offhand, and just got to be careful not to, smack it out or anything. Overall, I think the Combiner looks really cool. It's obviously something very different, very unique. Again, I really would have preferred the traditional Tripredacus colors, but this works fine as well. You can see that the Combiner's head is based on that of Tripredacus, though squished down a lot more because it has to fit, inside of C-clamps, like abdominal area. And the chest is interesting because it's very heavily painted, and it's done up in like blacks and dark blues and orange and silver. And I'm not 100% sure if that's really referencing Tripredacus. It doesn't really look like his chest piece. I guess you could imagine that the orange squares are supposed to resemble the cicada eyes, maybe. But then all this, should be probably green instead of dark blue. And the silver area in the middle might be referencing the white area in the middle of Tripredacus's chest. I'm not sure. It's kind of hard to tell what they were going for with this because it's quite a bit different. I do like the striping here on the shins, which, now that I think about it, those may actually be intended to replicate the lobster legs on the legs of the Tripredacus combiner. I'm not really sure. Maybe that's what they're going for. Though those legs were going across the back, so who knows? Who knows what's going on with this thing? It's confusing. Next is our obligatory group shot with Tripredacus. And this guy's really interesting because he was one of only 2 combiners in all of Beast Wars. Just him and then his maximal counterpart, Magnaboss. Now you could get technical and we could lump in there the Japanese recolors of these guys because those were separate characters. But I'm just talking, regular Beast Wars. And you can see he's quite a bit smaller than Predacus. Though honestly, if you cut him off at the knees there and took away those extra leg components, they'd be roughly the same height. So even though it's never officially stated as such, I really think Tripredacus is just kind of a lesser form of Predacus. It's Predacus without his added lieutenants to help bulk him up. So I think these two, they do complement each other really well. Again, I'd love to see a Digibash if somebody could do one of this guy in this dude's colors. He would have looked so much better that way. I really feel going with the whole Tripredacus Council is red theory was just kind of a cop-out to be able to be lazy with the colors and make these guys just mostly red, but I don't know. Maybe not. And that's going to complete our look at 2016 BotCon Predacus. Overall, I think it's a very fun little set. It does have its issues, both as far as QC goes and, in my opinion, the artistic direction. I really think it would have been better served using the more traditional Beast Wars colors. But for what it is, for having to take a Beast Wars combiner and make it work within the Combiner Wars system, it works out pretty well. Ravage's head is pretty terrible, and luckily I don't plan on displaying him in his robot mode, so it's not a huge loss, but boy, is that an abysmal head sculpt. It's just like a flat little panel with a cat face. Really bad. But, the total package, I think, is better than its parts, right? What do they say? Better than some of its parts, and I think he really lives up to that here. Because the individual pieces, nothing to really write home about. The overall combiner, though, a very cool homage to a rather obscure character. I really enjoyed kind of busting this guy out. It really takes me back to, my one and only BotCon visit, which was a huge thing for me, right? It was the first and last time I ever got to experience that. And it was just so cool because it was, it's Beast Wars related. And that's, my whole bag right there. We had a lot of the Beast Wars cast show up and voice their roles for script reading. The whole show floor thing was awesome. I mean, this guy really represents just an entire experience for me. So I am a little partial to it. Maybe that is clouding my judgment as far as how good the combiner actually is, but I'm really happy with the way it turned out. And I look forward to doing my next Beast Wars Anniversary review, which is going to be his maximal rival, Magnaboss, who only 2/5 of the guy are actual BotCon toys, and we'll get into that, though. I don't want to spoil too much. So I really enjoyed taking a look at this guy with you all, and hopefully you enjoy just kind of getting a load of this 5-year-old BotCon figure, and hopefully it's something you haven't really seen before, so you got to learn a little bit about it today. Reminder that the 25th anniversary event at Tformers is ongoing this month, so be sure to check that out, where you can see all sorts of other reviews. You can enter for a chance to win gift cards. It's going to be a whole lot of fun, so I recommend checking that out. Additionally, I just really thank you guys for joining me for this look at the 2016 Dawn of the Predacus box set. Predacus. With all that said, I will see you next time.